Welcome, come on in, everybody. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much for having us.
Now, I'm hoping you can clear something up for me about lesbians.
Not now, Gwen.
It's something I was told in the covered market, and to be honest with you, it did surprise me.
Let me get settled in first, shall we?
That's from Pride, a new film set during the miners' strike of the 1980s and out this week. Dai is based on a real person, David Donovan, and he also happens, now, to be my union official.
This is a bit weird for me because I actually feel like, as I know you a bit already and I count you as a friend,
yeah.
I knew you had a kind of previous life as a miner, and suddenly I'm seeing a bit of your life up on the screen.
Well, I think you say it's weird for you. It's the same for me, frankly, because to think that somebody would contact you and discuss, incidents from your past 30 years ago or then now were merited, if you like, portrayal on a screen, and to go further than that, to actually retain your identity on the screen. I mean, it is really unusual. I think when you look back on those events, it's easy enough, I think, to think of them as almost history now. But I think the message in the film is as valid today as the reason the incidents came into being 30 years ago.
What was going on for you and your community at that time? Where were you?
Well, we were talking about the miners' strike in 82 and 85. The industrial landscape of South Wales in particular was very bleak. I think it's all too easy to forget the attack on society that was going on at that time by Thatcher and the Conservative government. It was a deconstruction of major trades unions up and down the country. It was an attack on individuals, whether you were identified as a trades unionist or whether you were identified by the colour of your skin or indeed your sexuality. I think it's all too easy to forget how terrible those times were when we look at society today.
So there you are, you're part of a relatively small mining community in South Wales, and lesbians and gays support the miners suddenly sort of crashed into your life. How did that happen?
Quite simply, really, that I was asked to pick up a cheque that came from lesbians and gays in London, and would I go and pick the cheque up? And I unhesitatingly said, yes, of course I will, because I believe that for me the strike was political. It always was, and it was about a much wider defence than the defence of an immediate colliery or community in the coalfields.
I have to say, one of the extraordinary scenes is you're meeting the group in London and you're portrayed as saying, I don't think I've met any gay people before. Is that a slight embroidering of the truth?
Yes, it is really. But I mean, the producers were always very, very careful to say that, look, this isn't a documentary, almost to reassure us that it wouldn't be a documentary, that there was some dramatic licence to be taken. And I think that's fair enough.
There's also a scene where you're seen giving a speech in a gay club.
I'm going to invite somebody onto the stage now who wants to talk to you, and I want you to listen to him. He comes from the Dais Valley in South Wales, and he's a striking miner, and he has something he wants to say to you.
I've had a lot of new experiences during the strike. Speed in public, standing on a picket line, and now I'm in a gay bar.
Well, if you don't like it, you can go home.
As a matter of fact, I do like it. Beer's a bit expensive, mine. But really, there's only one difference between this and a bar in South Wales. The women. They're a lot more feminine in here. What I'd really like to say to you tonight is thank you. If you're one of the people that's put money in these buckets, if you've supported LGSM, then thank you. Because what you've given us is more than money, it's friendship. When you're in a battle against an enemy so much bigger, so much stronger than you, but to find out you had a friend you never knew existed, well, that's the best feeling in the world. So thank you.
Please tell me that that's true. Please tell me that happened.
Most of what you see is accurate, yeah.
you grinning. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, yes, it was. It was so far removed from my everyday experience. So far removed. I think it's fair to say that the clubs that I went to, that I was taken to by lesbians and gays, were a real eye-opener. And yet, you know, the experience itself was just a reaffirmation that we are all the same people, basically. I gave that speech in the gay club. I think the first time I went there to pick up a cheque, it was in one of the nightclubs in London, and then subsequently at Gays the Word bookshop and attending meetings there, and then at the Pits and Perverts concert. And yes, all of that is accurate.
It felt like you went on a bit of a limb because you then invited them back to your home.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually invite them to my home. I invited them down to the community that we were. That is the Neath, Swansea and Dulwich Valley support group. We would bring support groups down to the mining communities so that they could see exactly what and who they were supporting. The difficulty was that they were late arriving, and so therefore they couldn't find the hall that we'd arranged all the families. The number of the families going to take people back to their homes. So they ended up in my home, and they all spent, I think it was over 40 people spent the night on the
40?
living room. Over 40 spent the night lying in all sorts of cul-de-sacs in my home, and my wife and my 2 children were there, and it was quite an experience. And I'll always remember my daughter coming down the stairs. She was about 7 or 8 at the time, coming down the stairs, just looking with all these. You literally couldn't put your feet onto a clear space of floor to walk across. And it's one of those memories that sort of enrich one's memories and experiences at that time. It's enriched it for me, certainly my family, but it's enriched it for my daughter and my son at the time as well, who have these fleeting memories, albeit too young at that stage to know exactly what they were, you know.
Did that feel like a bit of a risk, inviting gays and lesbians from London to come to what might have been a slightly more conservative, with a small c, Welsh village?
Yeah. In my mind, there was never any doubt at all, nor was there any doubt in the mind of the support group when we discussed it. But the strange thing was, as the date was coming nearer to that weekend, I did wonder. I wondered whether people were as generous as I imagined they were, because it's all too easy if you're a little bit chopsy, a little bit loudmouthed, to be, you know, driving things through. The amazing thing about the experience was that the families in the communities of South Wales were every bit as generous as I imagined. We didn't even have to consider it twice. They showed an openness and a generosity that I'm extremely proud of. I'm proud of that fact to today.
What else did they bring the community other than the cash?
The importance of it was that individuals in that community took lesbian and gay people into their homes, whereas they couldn't identify other people that worked in the collieries or worked in the factories that were lesbian and gay. And so that therefore that generosity was very important in being able to show everybody that ultimately we're all human beings and we have hopes and aspirations that all of us would wish to aspire to. And I think the opportunity it gave us was to say that we know, some of us experienced this for the first time, that is the concerted attack of the state, whereas you have been experiencing this from when, if you would read the Sun or the Mail or the Express, and the opportunity it gave us was to forge that link with them. And some people may remember that the miners were called the enemy within. But of course, other sections of society had been considered to be the enemy within. And it was our opportunity to say, you wore our badge, now we'll wear yours. And I think that intermingling, if you like, of ideas, that mixing, if you like, of identity is something that was extremely valuable and made it sustainable for the last 30 years.
Why should gay people like me support the miners? Because miners dig for coal, which produces power, which allows gay people like you to dance to Bananarama until 3 o'clock in the morning. Next question.
Let me move on to the kind of the experience of your life is in a film. What does that do to you when you watch it?
Well, it is unusual. I mean, I think I spent the first few minutes I don't know what it would be typical, but I was looking for the character that was playing me, and I found myself thinking, oh, well, I didn't wear my hair like that, or I didn't dress like that, but that only lasted a few minutes because, in fairness, I think Paddy Considine, who acts as me, I met him for about an hour. He certainly took on my spirit, and he took on my character, if you like, and one of my children said as much. And to see that portrayed, it came through to me as well, that maybe he wasn't as decisive as I would like to think I was. Maybe he wasn't, but what he captured of me was, if you like, that sincerity about the desire to see people under attack, to work together, to support each other.
I don't want to ruin the film, but it's got the most amazing ending. There were several times during the movie where I was in tears from just remembering what the 80s were like. It was so real, and also it felt close to me because I know you. But the ending of that movie, when what happens, what did that feel like in real life?
I found myself, the same as you, feeling the same about some of the memories being portrayed there. Frankly, it felt like a justification. It felt like a confirmation of that desire for two communities to hold hands and to help each other. It was about the desire and that no people should feel alone, and that when you make those links, that those links are sustained, and that simply because the pressure had gone off the miners, because unfortunately we lost that big battle, it didn't mean to say that those links that were forged in adversity would fall as well.
Has it changed you, and did it change the community? Are those things still there?
They definitely still there, because many of the individuals that were involved on both sides, some regrettably have died since the events portrayed, and some of the key players that are portrayed in the film have died sadly. But the friendships that were forged then are still there. The memories of what was forged then are still there, and I would argue that what was built within the lesbian and gay community, that is, that it would take its place amongst mainstream political dialogue in the United Kingdom, is definitely there. Anybody that fails to be convinced of that only has to look at the timeline of politics for lesbian and gay community in the early 80s and see where it is today. It is part of mainstream society, part of mainstream politics today.
Thank you, David.
Who hates the miners? Thatcher? Who else? The police, the public, and the tabloid press. It sounds familiar. Surely, but the only problem we've got that they haven't is Mary Whitehouse, and that can only be a matter of time.
I'm home. I'm gay. I'm Welsh.
That's right! For more information about Shoutout Radio, visit us online at shoutoutradio.lgbt.
Shout out.
LGBT radio for you.